Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, No Boss, No Boundaries, No Burnout, with our wizard of mental health and DEIB, Jim Oldroyd, who is also a freelancer, has his own company called Bread and Butter Learning Solutions. So welcome, Jim. Thank you for agreeing to do this webinar with us.
Morning.
I shall let you take it away, but before I do, if you want to just bob into chat where you're dialing in from, and what was the last thing you ate? Let's start off with that. Last thing you ate. I was eating crackers. Crackers just with butter, just crackers. So yeah, bob it into chat. I'll be looking after the chat in the back end, but without further ado, Jim, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Kim. Lovely to meet you all, and thank you very much for joining today. As mentioned, today's session is all about well-being in the freelancing world, lovingly titled No Boss, No Boundaries, No Burnout. The agenda is quite informal today, so obviously we're just going to do a little bit of welcome, which we've done with some introductions. Then going to be having a shift on focus around our world as freelancers and what that looks like, and in particular the importance of mental health in the freelancing world. Alongside that, we're going to provide you with a few useful strategies and good daily habits to adopt. Some few strategies around avoiding burnout, because we're all guilty of getting there at some point. And then before we close, a few extra little resources for you, really, some books, some articles, some apps, and other things to consider for those of you who want to kind of delve a little bit deeper into what we're going to be discussing today. And then we'll wrap up with any more final questions that you have. So just a little bit of an introduction to myself. So my name is James Oldroyd. Everyone knows me as Jim. I've been an L&D practitioner for over 18 years now. I started out as an operational trainer, and then I ended my, I suppose, employed career as head of L&D for two successful UK businesses. And also was successful in bringing L&D to the exec table in both instances as well, and giving us L&D practitioners a voice. I've worked with and continue to work with some of the UK's biggest brands and also some of the biggest companies in the world. I have won a few awards over the years, most recently nominated last year, February 2023, for sustainability in L&D. And also the reason why I'm here today is I am a qualified mental health first aider. I am part of the L&D Free Spirits community, and as Kim said, I am the wizard of DEIB, so it's diversity, equity, inclusion and belonging, for those of you that aren't aware. So without further ado, we'll start off with basically why we're all here today. And effectively, it's just to equip us all with strategies to protect our mental and also our physical well-being, to set healthy boundaries for us. And obviously we want to thrive without having those structures of a traditional workplace. So to begin with, we're going to have a look at then our freelancing lifestyle. So what's it like to be a freelancer, and how can our health, mental health and overall well-being be affected? So I think we can all agree that freelancing offers flexibility, tons of autonomy. And I think it's quite amazing that we get the chance to work on projects that we're passionate about. We're quite lucky in that respect, that we can pick and choose the projects, the clients, and the work that we like to do. That does, however, come with a caveat, because we don't have the structure and the support of a, I suppose, traditional workplace. And that can bring unique challenges that can really have a massive impact on our mental health. And I think it's safe to say that maintaining a good mental health is crucial for everyone really, but in particular freelancers, because we want to make sure that we sustain and we have a fulfilling but also productive career. Strong mental health also allows us to be a little bit more resilient, and it can help us to, I suppose, adapt really in uncertainties and the demands of self-employment, while again enjoying the freedom that freelancing can provide. So my first question to you guys, and please feel free to put in the chat, what's the biggest challenge that you're facing currently as a freelancer?
Just while we're waiting for everybody to put their answers in the chat, I think for me, my biggest challenge is finding the time to do everything that I want to do. And you all know that I work a lot. But it's like, I want to clone myself, so I have another me with my brain that can do that stuff, so I can do this stuff and all of that. So we're just getting some answers in. So Haley said, after 7 years of self-employment, I still feel guilty for not being present for clients throughout the day, every day. So, and Andy's saying, getting a new client when things are winding down. So looking at, okay, where's my next gig coming from? Martin, balancing actual work. So projects clients are giving me, which is a good thing, versus the stuff for me, websites, LinkedIn. I know, Martin, it's like working in your business or on your business. That's a big struggle. So we're getting some cracking answers coming through from them. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, guys. And fully complete with all of those. I feel your pain in every single one of those. It's difficult not to really. We got a few additional responses as well, and this is not an exhaustive list by any means. And some of them, what you kind of mentioned, was cropped up already. I think it's quite common, certainly for freelancers, those of us who work from home, the fear of, I suppose, isolation and loneliness can creep in. If you're working by yourself with no one else around, no team to support you, no team to manage or report into. An unpredictable workload, which is, I suppose, can mean a number of things. You don't know where your next project might be coming in. You don't know how big the scope is. Project timelines change. They can extend. They can shorten. So again, it's a lot less traditional, where you're not going to work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, or as a regular structure. The financial instability kind of linked in with the previous response. So absolutely, when's my next client coming from? When's my next project? When am I next going to get paid? Again, you don't have that that annual or monthly pay roll coming in. So again, it can be quite unstable. Difficulty setting boundaries. Again, we all, as Kim mentioned, we can be guilty of working longer hours. We can be guilty of working over weekends. And, that can impact our relationships as well, not just our own mental health. The pressure of self-management and making our own decisions. I suppose those who's not managed teams before, or, managed departments, or had the autonomy to make decisions, it can be quite hard. It's certainly very daunting when you move from that kind of like employed space to looking after your own business and being a freelancer. This is what I'm absolutely guilty of: perfectionism, a fear of failure. I think, certainly when you're moving from client to client, I suppose you don't necessarily know how everything works, how they like things to be done. And you can do that digging and delving in the initial meet and greets and what have you. But I think sometimes it can be really hard to, show that you 100% get what they're asking. And I, for one, panic quite a lot thinking, am I doing the right thing? Is this what they want? And it can create quite a lot of nervousness. Difficulty taking time out. I think that's absolutely, a big one, because again, you can get guilty from working a lot of hours, over the weekends. And, I think sometimes you have to think, actually, yeah, I'm going to take some time out and I'm going to have a week off to decompress, because it's needed. And yeah, you might not get paid for it, but absolutely, it's better for you overall. And again, feeling responsible for every outcome, making sure that, it's hard work, that if you've got the full responsibility, you are your brand, you are your business, and you want to make sure that, you're doing everything right, but you've got a lot of weight on your shoulders as well. So those are just a few answers that I suppose, speaking to people that I know, came up with, and things, that I've kind of felt myself over the last 18 months. But again, thank you all so much for your responses as well. So how do we counteract all that? If you think about that in the kind of wider scheme of things, that's a lot that we have to cope with, as well as, having a normal life outside of work, and obviously doing the BAU that comes alongside with, what we do as freelancers. So I've kind of put together a few useful strategies and a few hints and tips as well, just to kind of counteract that and help us, because we do have a lot on our shoulders, don't we? So I think the first thing that I've kind of thought was building a support network. And the fact that you're on this chat today means that you've already, taken that step, which is brilliant. Freelancer community is such, the L&D free spin, is absolutely crucial, certainly to someone like me who's still relatively new, I still finding my feet a little bit. And it's great just to have a chat with other people, find out, what's worked for them, what hasn't worked for them, and just have that kind of chat that you probably don't get because you're not in the office anymore with your teams and what have you. So, for me, L&D Free Spirits has been an absolute, godsend. And, I'm so glad that I joined and that we're working together. You guys are on the chat today. And, there's loads of options out there as well. Setting up regular check-ins with with fellow freelancers, again, as part of our community, that's something that I absolutely agree with. And I think it's certainly something that, it can be easily missed. If not, it's quite easy to be quite siloed, working on your own. So, don't forget to check in with other people, and they might, want to check in with you as well. I think another great idea as well is attending co-working spaces and networking events for that social aspect. We are all social animals at the end of the day, aren't we? And I think COVID kind of proved that we want to be with other people. There is L&D co-work events all over the country. We've got one in Leeds that I attend with Kim and some regular faces every month at the Santander Work Cafe. And it's great, I take my laptop. I don't do that much work, but it's great just to have a chat with people. Again, share best practice. Just have a good old chin wagging and have a coffee and a cake, which is never a bad thing, is it really? I think the second thing in terms of strategy is how to maintain a work-life balance, which can be incredibly difficult, can't it? I think we have to really set clear boundaries, dedicate those hours of work and your personal time. Once your laptop's down, your laptop's down. If you've left the office, if you've got an office space, just make sure that once work is done, and you've got time for yourself, you've got time for your family, your partner, your pets, anyone that's outside of that, your working environment. I think it's really important as well to create a working dedicated space to mentally separate you from home life. This was something I was not guilty of when the pandemic hit. I lived in a small apartment at the time, and I literally worked, relaxed, and kind of like had my comfort time in one small room, and my headspace wasn't very good at all. So I think once I moved, we decided that I needed a dedicated space for me to work, where I could literally close my laptop, turn the light off, and work would be done. And I think even if you don't have a space to do that, just create a little zone or something where you can actually just put your laptop to bed and say, thank you very much, see you in the morning. Also things like time management tools as well, like the Pomodoro technique, to avoid overwork and make sure that you're doing everything you need to do, but you're not, working silly hours, and that you're not kind of ignoring other important things in your life as well. I think the next one, this is a tricky one, handling uncertainty and financial stability. It's a really hard one, isn't it? Because obviously, we are freelancers. We're not in that traditional employed work where you're guaranteed an income every month. So worrying about where the next project's going to come from, where the next paycheck's going to come from, it's a constant, isn't it? You want to make sure that you've got enough money to pay your bills, but also, have a good quality of life. We chose this life because we want to make sure we've got that flexibility and freedom, but also the opportunity to work on projects that we probably wouldn't work on before. So I think for me, absolutely, it's a bonus, but it also comes with a big worry that where's my next money coming from? I think the hint for that one is to diversify your streams of income. And I think by that, I mean, don't just rely on one kind of piece of work. At the moment, I've been doing quite a lot of design, but I've got quite a wide skill set. So I've started doing quite a bit of delivery, some coaching. I'm also the board of director of a charity. So I've been mixing things up because that's the way, I suppose, my life has gone while I've been a contractor and a freelancer. And it's something I would have never have done before. I was kind of doing the same kind of role in different businesses. And the last 18 months, I've really been able to diversify and really kind of work on lots of different things. And that's just getting bigger and bigger. So if you can diversify your income in any way, it's great for your portfolio, but it's also great for your networking as well. Build an emergency fund for slow periods. There's often slow periods without the year. I felt it a little bit this year. You just need to make sure you've got that little pot where you can pay the bills, make sure you keep the lights switched on, a roof over your head, food in the fridge, and just, I suppose, plan and budget effectively. And one of the things I would also say as well, don't be afraid to celebrate the small wins to boost your confidence. I think for me, it's, I've always been an advocate of, celebrating any form of feedback, whether it's working with my teams and celebrating what they've done, or if it's something that I'm proud of. And I think we're very stoically British, aren't we? We don't like to pat ourselves on the back a lot, but I think in our gig, I think it's really important to do that. If you get great feedback from a client, 100% celebrate it. If you get, a nice testimonial from a client or someone you've worked with previously, showcase it, be proud of yourself because, it's really good for your confidence. It will really make you smile. I get comments, this year that are really 100% made me, so proud and unbelievably it's quite overwhelming really. A guy who I worked with over 10 years ago actually mentioned that he still remembers the training that myself and Kim delivered 12 plus years ago, and it still resonated with him. And that was completely a comment on LinkedIn that blew my mind because I was like, wow, I would never expect that. So those little moments, those little kind of nuances, 100% celebrate them. Prioritizing your mental and also your physical health, again, schedule regular breaks and take time for holidays. If it's just a long weekend away or, a cheeky few days away, if you can, absolutely do it. It's really important for your mental and also your physical well-being. Engage in daily exercise and also mindfulness practices. I go for a walk every lunchtime when I can. The local villages, its town centre is only, less than a mile away. So I can go around the shops, get something to eat, get my steps in, and just kind of like recharge for the afternoon. As hard as it is, learn to say no to prevent burnout. Obviously we want to make sure that we're not doing too much, but we want to make sure we also want to pay the bills at the same time. So don't be afraid to say no if you can't do it, because you want to make sure you do a tip-top 100% job, which kind of leads me on to the next kind of bullet, which is collaborate with other freelancers. If you can't actually do that particular piece of work or that project, if you know someone who can, refer them and just say, actually, I can't on this instance, but I know someone else who could do that job for me. That's happened a couple of times for me this year. And it's been great that I've been able to get through some doors that I probably wouldn't have before. But likewise, I've then been able to do that opportunity for someone else. So it swings and roundabouts, isn't it? If it's like they say, if you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. But this is a really great way to use that network that we built with each other. And as I said, it's that client will still get that piece of work done, but it could also have great pay it forward for you in the future. And I think finally for this section, coping with self-doubt and imposter syndrome. Again, I'm very guilty of this, but I think when we mentioned about celebrating the quick wins, keep a praise folder. All those little bits of positive feedback, large or small, when you've completed a project successfully, get a testimonial from your clients, bundle them, package them all together, and keep them for yourself. Just as I did this. I'm really proud of what I've accomplished as a freelancer. And a bit of a hint and tip as well: share them with any agencies, any new clients. This is what you're building as your business and your brand. Be really proud of yourself. And if you have those little moments that you're kind of hitting a bit of a wobble or you're not feeling great, it's good just to refer back to and think, actually, this is what I've accomplished. Focus on your growth and your improvement rather than perfection. You want to make sure that, your work's perfect and that you do 100% job, but don't be worried about what other people are doing. Focus on yourself and focus on what you want to get out of your business. If you want to grow, if you want to improve, if you want to get yourself out there more, it's really difficult, to look at other people on social media and see what they do. But actually, as hard as it is, just say, you know what, I'm going to focus on myself. Which leads into the last bit: surround yourself with supporting people who believe in your skills. And that all comes part of, your networking, the people that you want to just have a regular chat with, have a coffee with, do work and collaborate with. And all that comes in with all the networking that we discussed earlier. Hello, Kim.
Hello. I was just thinking that seems like a nice opportunity to talk about the imposter syndrome side of things. And something that I've learned, no matter how confident somebody and successful somebody appears, they still have little imposter gremlin sat on the shoulder saying, you're no good at this. You can't do this. Why is someone going to hire you? So everybody has a little imposter. Sometimes the gremlin is louder than other times. But it's something that I still struggle with sometimes. And I know full well that if I land a gig or if I do something, if I put my mind to it, I will absolutely smash the bejesus out of it. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, there are people who are better at it than I am. There are people who have done more, have got more experience, older, younger, whatever. Um, so it is one of those constant struggles that you have. And it seems to be sometimes exacerbated when you are self-employed because you don't have that team structure of, people with the different skills.
Fully agree.
What do you think in the comments? And something in the chat. Do you have an imposter gremlin? Don't feed it after midnight. That's all I can say.
While we're talking about that, I think don't forget we've got the success stories channel in the L&D Free Spirit Slack group. So that's the perfect opportunity to share those little wins that you have. I had one a few weeks ago that I was working on a contract which is extended, and it was gone well beyond kind of like the original kind of scoping. So little claps for me. And some other guys have put some comments in there as well. So again, it's not about throwing flowers at yourself. It's about actually celebrating those little wins and thinking, yeah, I've accomplished that. And actually, I'm happy to share with everyone else. And it'll pick everyone else's spirits up as well, not just your own.
Yeah. And it's sharing it with people that actually understand why it's such a milestone, why it's such a win. Because when you are self-employed and you're like, oh yeah, I've just had an amazing scoping call. I haven't landed the client yet, but I learned so much about how to pick bits of information out of and everything. And you'll be chatting to somebody who maybe works in a different industry or is maybe employed, and they'll be like, yeah, and. But when you say that to another freelancer or someone who runs their own business, they're like, that's amazing. Give me all the tips. So
100%.
share and share alike. But anyway, I'll wind my neck back in and I'll go back on mute. Continue, Mr. Oldroyd.
Thank you very much. Okay. So next year we're going to have a look at, we've looked at some kind of like key strategies, but the here and now we've got a few kind of daily habits that might be quite good to adopt, while we're freelancing and trying to look after our overall, I suppose, mental health and well-being. So the first one I would say is just set yourself achievable goals. Goals that are realistic, that you can break down into smaller tasks, to avoid being overwhelmed. I would say, if you're working on a big project, scope it down into bite-sized pieces and chunk and make it easy for yourself. Kind of mentioned this already, but practice gratitude journaling. And again, I can't stress this enough. Just celebrate those little wins. In a normal working environment, they wouldn't be that big, but to you, setting up your business, you've gone and set it up through Companies House. You've probably built your website. You're marketing the bejesus out yourself, on LinkedIn and all other social media platforms. You don't kind of get that kind of same experience when when you're working as a business for a business, sorry, but for your own business, it's a massive, massive win. And I can't stress that enough. Don't compare yourself to others, as I mentioned, on social media. It's really difficult when you see someone landed a really good gig, getting great feedback, getting all the applause. But focus on your achievements, on as little or as big as they are. This is your business, your brand. You are the boss, and it's those kind of little steps will really, really just make a massive difference for you. And again, create a morning routine. I know so many people who work from home who literally get up, put a hoodie on, and start working. I think for me, that just does not work. It might work for you guys, but I like a routine. I like to get up, have a coffee, kind of like get ready for the day, get a shower, and then I'm ready to start working at 8 o'clock. I can't literally roll out of bed at 5 to 8 and then put on, open my laptop. It just does not work for me. I like to decompress. I'm not a morning person. My partner talks to me and I'm just kind of like, don't speak until I've had my morning coffee. So I think you've got to make sure that you have a bit of a routine as if you were going to work in the office and really kind of set yourself up for a productive day. Okay, so avoiding burnout. So I think certainly the world's changed a little bit since COVID. I think that people want a lot more of you. And I think certainly now, with working from home, that kind of like flexibility, certainly as we have as freelancers, it's very easy for us to work an extra hour, an extra day into our weekend, but that takes its toll. So again, just a few little, hopefully useful strategies for you to avoid burnout. I think the first thing for me is identify if you are burnt out. You know, the signs include you're just constantly exhausted, your motivation's massively reduced, and I think you're feeling detached from work as well. I think that's quite a key one for me. You know, you kind of like, the motivation is not there. I'm not really feeling it. You know, that's a big sign, you know, for burnout. To kind of prevent yourself being burnt out, and you know, again, take regular breaks, schedule days off, full regular days, you know, enjoy your weekend if possible, and try and avoid working long hours every single day. And make sure that you can take on those manageable projects and don't over to commit to anything that you feel you can't do. It's easily done. You know, I've been working earlier on in the year, I was working with multiple clients at the same time, and you're juggling many plates, and you want to do it because you're guaranteed work and it's a new client and it's all exciting, but you also get to a point where you just think, I'm absolutely exhausted now. Seeking support, it's all right to talk to people, and it's all right to ask other, you know, your friends, your family, other freelancers, you know, if you're feeling anything like exhausted or just totally burnt out, you know, absolutely share with other people. There's the networks of people out there, you know, we genuinely care about each other. We want to make sure that, you know, you've got the best support systems in place. And, you know, as a mental health first aider myself, it's very easy just to kind of like shut off from the world and not talk to people. Whereas, you know, the people like us and this network that, you know, we've got systems in place where we can support. It's all right to ask for help from time to time. And as I mentioned, you know, again, to avoid burnout, this is a great opportunity to collaborate with other like-minded people like us. I see constantly in the Slack channel on the Free Spirits group, you know, people who maybe can't do a piece of work or asking if everyone's got any kind of experience or advice on, you know, recently feedback tools or, you know, coaching mechanisms and what have you. There's a lot of experience within the network. So please, by all means, just, you know, use that. And if you can't work with a particular client on something, and you know that you feel like someone else within the group might have that set of skills, show that, you know, hand that over to them and see if they'd be interested. And again, like I said, that might come pay it forward for you if you're a little bit of a lull and a little bit of a quiet spot. It's a really good opportunity to share the experience, you know, of yourself, but also with other people. So a bit of an open question to you guys. So please feel free again to pop some answers in the chat. But have you got any additional strategies that you have put in place or you think would be useful to stop you from burning out? Is there anything else additional to what I've not mentioned that you think actually that could work, or I've used that and that's helped me in the past? You want to jot your answers down below? Kim, if we get any responses, let me know.
So Andy's saying he tends to work on what he wants when he wants.
Oh,
So I
nice.
think I'm kind of in Andy's camp with my side of things. If you've read my week in the life of training journal that I did, I work very scattered. So if I have a dip in mojo on this, I pick up this and I do this and I do this and I do this, and everything kind of merges together for me. But I was very close to burnout last year when one of my clients pushed back a deadline, which then coincided with another client's deadline. One of them, I was building modules for a corporate induction. The other one, I was creating a cybersecurity webinar out of source material. So quite heavy stuff for both of them. And I was working that week, wine was involved, chocolate and every other coping mechanism, but I was working long hours at my desk. So, you know, if it gets to 2, 3 o'clock, if my meetings are done, I'll take my laptop downstairs, and I find it more relaxing taking myself out of my desk environment, which helps me, you know, not burn out and things. But this day I was like 7, 8 o'clock or whatever, I was at my desk building, designing, doing amends, all of that kind of stuff. And I was like, I'm at the top of the tree, but it's going to be done this week. It's only for this week. After that, it's fine. So I think knowing when your end point is going to be that it's like, yes, I have this massive sprint that I have to do. And I know as soon as it's done, then I can relax, then I can breathe, then I can take the weekend off, then I can take 2 days off, then I can go and get a pedicure or something like that. Just that little treat to reward you for doing that massive amount. Andy's put into chat, he uses the Einstein time principle. Is that where you can go backwards in time? Because I'm like, not Marty McFly in any of this. He focuses on the right type of project when they most feel like doing it. Yeah,
I like
I
that.
like that. Because if you're feeling creative, then do something visual. You know, I'm not going to write an article unless I'm feeling righty. That's not
Yeah.
actually a word, but you know what I mean.
What's that old saying? That, eat a frog for breakfast because it's the worst thing you'll do all day. Quite like that.
Well, it depends if you like frogs, though, don't they? Some people put them in soups and stews and all of that.
I'm all right.
Haley's put in, she has a half-hour coffee in the morning with no phone or laptop. Oh, well done, you. Do my best to stop working around 4 or 5 to give herself an evening. Used to work past 6 and it had a knock-on effect and snowballed. And don't work on a Friday or the weekend. So, and this is the thing. So I work with Haley as she is our wizard of marketing. And I know occasionally I'll message on a Friday. Usually it's when I'm super excited about something, but I never expect a reply. So I am respecting Haley's boundaries there. And I think that goes as well with when you're working with people, when you're collaborating with other freelancers, if they say, look, I am not available for this, I'm at the top of the tree, respecting what they're saying. And even if they work a different way from you, and you're thinking, well, I wouldn't be burnt out by that, you don't know what else is going on in their life. Okay, leave you to it again. That's it from the chat as well.
Thank you very much for all your questions and suggestions. So just to kind of, I suppose, round up towards the end of the session then. So hopefully you found, the tips that we put together and, some of the strategies really useful. Again, that's not an exhaustive list. That's just a few things, I suppose, I've picked up from my own experience and, things that I've received from speaking to other people as well within my own network. But we do have some other I suppose, resources for those of you who kind of want to delve into this more. You might be familiar with these already, or if there's something that you think actually might be worthwhile. Again, not an exhaustive list by any means, but hopefully some extra resources that you might find useful. So we've got the Atomic Habits book and the Freelance Manifesto books, which are really kind of quite famous for helping us freelancers, with our world and how to adapt. And make sure that we're successful in what we're doing. Things such as like time management tools, as I mentioned, Pomodoro, even like Google Calendar, such things where you can really help, structure your day and make sure that you've got time to get everything you need to be done, and then you still got time to enjoy your evening and your life outside of work. And again, as I mentioned quite a few times on this webinar today, networking is absolutely essential in our world. I wouldn't be able to doing this job without networking. It really is kind of like the key tool for us freelancers. So, things like LinkedIn, obviously key. The L&D Free Spirits Network, again, absolutely key. But you've got obviously, things which the L&D co-working events. And, if you can't think of an event that's near you, create one. It's really great opportunity to get out there from like-minded people and share, your stories and how you can really support each other. And again, some quite famous apps such as Headspace or Calm, or can help from that overall mindfulness. And if you're struggling to Sleep Cycle again is good for tracking your sleep. I remember I downloaded that earlier in the year, but it was quite frightening. Just you kind of like what you're doing on your sleep. How I didn't realize I talked in my sleep, which I kind of do. I know I certainly snore, but it's really good for tracking just how much good quality sleep you're getting, if that's something that you want to make sure that you're keeping an eye on. So there are some useful resources that you might find. Again, not exhaustive. There's a ton of stuff out there, but these are just a few things that, I've just pulled together that you might be familiar with. If not, by all means, please go check them out. All I would say then is if anyone's got any more questions, but again, keep in touch with each other and, continue to learn. You keep in touch through L&D Free Spirits and, just have a conversation. It doesn't always have to be work related, even just a simple check-in, a hello, how's your day going? How's your week going? Just, it really does mean the world, and it help you if you're kind of like feeling the pressure of you've got a lot on your plate, but also it can really help someone else.
I'd say final thought from me before we close is if anybody is ever feeling the pressure, wants to talk it out, shake it off, all of that, just send me a DM on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to pick up, I'd say the phone, but who does that anymore? Always happy to put my earplugs in and get you on a Zoom and just listen. If you need talking off the ledge, I'll talk you off the ledge. If you need to just have someone listen to you rant and be like, am I right or am I bonkers? I'm your girl. So yeah, if anybody needs anything, you can always give me a shout on LinkedIn.
And same here, I am a mental health first aider. I've been for a couple of years, and I've got broad shoulders. I've managed many teams over the years and, had many conversations. So more than happy to support as if anyone ever needs it.
Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you, Jim, for your wise words. Thank you all for joining us and being active in the chat as well. We'll see you soon. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.